And start.
Okay, sir. So, first I would like to ask everyone that did anyone submit the assignment that I had given last week?
Yes, ma'am, I have submitted.
Shrestha, you have submitted, na?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So,
I have also submitted.
Lakshmi, you submitted,
Yes, ma'am.
but I didn't get any notification actually of your submission. So that's why I'm not able to see your submissions. Did you submit it in the Google Classroom only?
Yes, ma'am.
The return turned in.
Sorry?
I did it on Sunday, like before the deadline.
Okay, no, that's fine, but I couldn't find anything there. So that's why, I mean, I didn't get any notification. Let me just go and check the classroom itself. So,
Ma'am, 4 students have submitted it. If you just go on the classroom and click on the assignment, you'll find there.
okay, okay. Fine, fine. I'll check it then. Let's just focus on our class today. So I would like all those who submitted, I would like them to share their, experiences of interviewing and transcribing in the later part of our lecture today. Okay. So first I'll just share my screen and we will begin the talk, the discussion on thematic analysis today. All right, please just let me know if it is visible to all of you.
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am,
it
it's
is
Yes,
visible.
visible.
ma'am.
Okay, okay. All right, so I'll start with the basics of thematic analysis and then the very steps of it, and we will discuss one specific model that is very, very popular and largely followed everywhere for thematic analysis with examples and demonstrations. Then we will discuss the assignments which you have submitted and maybe how we can actually do the thematic analysis in such cases. Okay. So thematic analysis actually provides the opportunity to code and categorize data into themes. Okay. So here the data means that, the qualitative data that we are talking about, the when you are interviewing someone and you are getting the responses, then you know how to transcribe. In our last class we described and we discussed how we can transcribe the interview data. So once it is transcribed and you have the textual data with you, there you get this opportunity to code and categorize that data into several themes. Okay. The purpose of coding using thematic analysis is to find the recurring themes and patterns within your qualitative data. Okay. So in the last class we discussed about coding, what are the different types of coding and how we can do it. So the basic idea behind coding the qualitative data is that when we are doing this coding will actually help us identify the specific patterns, okay, within the data that is there, and these patterns will actually help us to identify themes. So first we start with several themes, okay, sub themes, and then slowly and gradually we will filter down those themes into the main themes, okay, so that we are able to describe the entire data on the basis of those main themes which we just identified. Okay. So with each round of coding, new trends emerge and you can begin merging codes. Generally, when we do thematic analysis, we do a repeated coding process. Okay. So you read the data, you read and reread the data, okay, to identify and uh, label the codes. Okay. Once you get the codes, then again you revise the codes over and over again in order to make it as much saturated as possible. Okay. Saturated in the sense meaning that reaching a state where you are not getting any new themes. After a while, it will happen that after a while you will not get any new themes. All right, when you are doing this repeated coding and trying to find the different themes. So thematic analysis may also result in pattern coding, which involves grouping excerpts with similar codes under one overall code. We will discuss how you can do this actually. What are these excerpts, and how you can, you know, do this kind of pattern coding by, clubbing similar types of codes under one umbrella code. Okay. Another type of coding that is commonly paired with thematic analysis is axial coding. With axial coding, codes and categories are related based on relationships found within each round of coding. All right. So, in each round of coding, we get several codes. On the basis of those codes, we also identify several categories, and then we try to relate those. Okay. So, that's the axial coding that we are talking about. There are some other types of coding which we use here. For example, focus coding or selective coding, which involves finalizing a set of categories and codes based on the initial coding pass. So there are several stages of doing the coding. You start with the coding, and then you try to jot down all the codes for a particular set of data, and then you go on revising the coding over and over again. Okay. So finally, what you get is that you get some you do some selective coding. So from all those sets of coding, you select those which are describing the data in a much more precise manner. So you select those, and then you do the selective coding there. So qualitative data should be recoded according to the final code list. All right. So it's a ongoing process where you keep on doing the coding over and over again, and finally you are able to recode the entire qualitative data according to the final code list. This list is immovable and should not be deviated from. Okay, once you prepare the final codes, you should stick to it. You should not be, deviating from those list of codes and doing some more other, including some more other codes. You should not be doing it, because it will actually interfere with the objectivity of the coding process. All right. Then theoretical coding. We can use theoretical coding, which involves creating a concept and sorting or organizing codes based on that concept. So you can first identify one specific concept, and then you do all these coding which are somehow related to that particular concept that you are talking about. All right, or you just thought about that is theoretical coding. Elaborative coding, where elaborative coding is the basic intention of elaborative coding is to determine whether your current codes and categories relate to that previous study. Okay, so when you are doing this coding, you can do elaborative coding where you are trying to find out whether the codes which you have already uh, you know mm, uh, 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 labeled for your data, whether those are related to that previous study which has already been done or not. So these elaborative coding actually help you to relate the codes with the existing literature. All right. So we will see how it is done. The final narrative, okay, means the once the coding process is done, the narrative which you get out of it should not be bound by a single coding system. Single coding system means either you use axial coding or selective coding or elaborative coding or theoretical coding. Whatever you do, it is not limited to one single coding system. All right. It is considered a best practice to perform multiple coding types, to finalize the codes or categories, and to create a final narrative. You will see that when you are doing the coding, you can actually apply several different coding systems in order to get the best possible narrative. Okay, and this final outcome depends on the type and purpose of the research. Whatever research you are doing, depending upon that, you should be working with different coding systems. All right. Could be a theory, a narrative, or a model. Okay. So researcher will develop his or her findings and use the codes and categories to build the narrative during the conclusion. This process actually enables other researchers to follow up on the coding throughout their interviews to challenge and realign with the developed theory. So this is very important. All right. This actually explains why we need to do this coding. Once you are doing this coding, you are actually creating like a map for all other future researchers. Okay. So once you do this coding and you develop your theory, then what happens is that other researchers, when they are checking out your work, okay, or trying to understand how you derived your theory, they can look into the coding which you have done, and they can try to realign their thinking process, or even sometimes they can challenge what coding you have done in this case. Okay, so this will actually help to make sure that whatever you have achieved through your coding process, it's a foolproof system. All right, and nobody is able to challenge it in like that, or they are not able to validate the process. That doesn't happen. Okay, so it is very important when you are doing a thematic analysis, you should make a list of all the codes which you have used and how you have derived all those codes. I'll show you that how you can actually use tables and figures to denote that how all these different codes are used, okay, in your work, so that any future researcher can take a look into those codes and they are able to understand that okay, so this is how what is the thinking process that was going on, or what actually led to the development of a particular type of theory or a narrative or a model. That becomes much easier when you have a proper list of code which you have followed for your analysis. Okay, so thematic analysis model, the Miles and Huberman in 1994 actually talked about this particular model here. So consists of three link stages or streams. All right, what are these three streams? First is the data reduction, then data display, and data conclusion or drawing or verifying, as illustrated in this particular figure. You can see that. So data collection, for example, the data collection you have already done, right? Now, once your data collection is done, then you have to follow this rest of the three steps. First is data reduction, then data display, and then the conclusion part. So we will see how each of these stages actually work. So yeah, data display is actually a very important step in this case. Not only this particular model, but in thematic analysis as a whole, data display is very important, where it is described as an organized, compressed, and assembly of information that permits the conclusion drawing and action. So this stage actually focuses on visualizing the data by using a number of different display techniques. Now, these data can be in the form of the codes, the specific excerpts which you have selected from the data, the specific narratives which you have which you are using for your analysis. All those will come under data display. So it will include quotations, narrative text, okay, figures, tabulating differences, you putting something in the tables, okay, similarities, and even clarifying the relationship, including its associated complexity of data. Okay, so whatever be the data, when you are trying to visualize the entire data in some form, okay, then it actually is referred to as the data display in thematic analysis process. Okay. Final stages of the data analysis process are linked by arranging and organizing the researcher's concept and thoughts. This is achieved by building coherent findings and drawing structures of the results from the data that is displayed. Now, this display of data will actually help you to form a coherent organization of this entire data which you have got. So during this stage, the meaning of contradictory and identical data needs clarification. What does it mean? When you are able to visualize the entire data, okay, you are able to display the entire data, then you are able to actually look into the contradictory aspects of the data as also the identical aspects. Okay, so what are the contradictory aspects? It can be that when you are interviewing two different people, suppose, okay, maybe one of them is saying something, the other person is saying something else, right, which are absolutely contradictory to each other. That is possible. Also, there can be identical form of data, so 2% or 3% they are stating the same thing with respect to a particular issue. All right. So when this data display, you are doing this data display, it will actually help you to identify whether any contradictory exists in your data or any replication or any redundancy exists in your data. That also can be, very well understood and identified using the data display process itself. Is it clear to all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So what is the process of thematic analysis? This one provides the opportunity to the researchers to move beyond calculating unambiguous words or statements or expressing the ideas. All right. So when you have a lot of data with you, 5 to 10 or 12 pages of data all taken together, then it becomes very difficult to understand what each part of that data is talking about. But when you do this thematic analysis, you use the different codes and you are able to identify the different aspects of your data, then it becomes easier to identify and go beyond the the ambiguity of the words and statements, or how the different ideas have been expressed. So you can go beyond it actually. The themes develop the clues and then adapt or connect them to the raw data as summary indicators for deferred analysis. Meaning that once you develop the themes, okay, these themes actually provide you with some clues which you can connect with the raw data, and later on you can use it for further analysis. All right. While one single statement is significant, it does not necessarily reflect the full story. This is also very important. That's why when you are doing a thematic analysis, you have to make sure that you read and reread the data over and over again, because that will help you to understand the full story. All right. Advantage of thematic analysis: a thematic analysis process analyzes the data without engaging pre-existing themes, which means that it can be adapted to any research that relies only upon participants' clarifications, right? So it is not dependent upon any pre-existing theme or pre-existing idea like that. Okay, you can collect data. For example, all of you have collected data, you have interviewed people and you have collected data, so you can apply thematic analysis to any data which you are getting. All right, you do not need to have some pre-existing themes or ideas for doing the analysis. You can just rely on whatever the participants they are telling you, and you can analyze the data very easily. Okay, so we come to the first step, that is the data reduction. The data reduction process, what is it? See, this data reduction process is actually where we are trying to reduce the entire set of 10-12 pages of data into a very short, concise version of what you are trying to understand or you are trying to find. All right. So this data reduction process actually involves reducing that entire data so that you are able to draw the conclusions and you can verify those. So after collecting the data, the researcher actually should tabulate it in Microsoft Word, in the form of the transcription, which you have already done, some of you have already done, prior to preparing and organizing the content of data. This means that the data are ready to be analyzed word by word, using the tables to show any significant pattern or themes. Okay, so you can actually identify any theme, any pattern by looking at that particular table, which you can tabulate in your Microsoft Word in this case. Okay, data must be read at least twice. So Bogdan and Bicklin, they are of the opinion that you should at least read the data, at least twice you should read it. But you know, it's better if you read it more than twice. Actually, as you go on reading it over and over again, it will help you to understand what is being said and what is being, the insights of the data that will occur to you only when you are reading and rereading it over and over again. So it allows the researcher to appreciate the full picture and make connections between the participants' thoughts, ideas, and the data collected through observations. So when you are interviewing the person, you are also observing the person, isn't it? You are talking to that person. You are not only you are recording the words that the person is saying, but you are also taking into account the gestures of the person, how the person is behaving in a particular situation. All those things you are able to record in that way. So this observation actually helps you to get some more insight into the feelings and thoughts of the participant, right? So now when you are reading and rereading the transcribed data, you get an opportunity to relate that transcribed data with the observations which you had made during the interview process. Okay. So this entire thing actually helps you to reduce the data in a much more precise and objective manner. All right. So there are different stages of data reduction. What are these stages? Number one, data are ready to be analyzed word by word using the tables to show any significant pattern or theme. That is the first stage. Second stage is involves the highlighting the sentences from each participant that could be used. All the data should be highlighted to prepare it for the next phase. Okay, all those sentences which can be potential enough to give you some idea about a probable theme, you should highlight it in the data reduction stage. And the third stage is where this third stage actually involves using the highlighted sentences and breaking the data into smaller segments or themes. These segments or themes refer to the sentences of a paragraph which establishes the first theme from the data. So when you are looking into all these data together, it becomes very confusing. So it's better that you highlight some part of it, which can contribute to the development of themes, and then you take into account only those highlighted sentences and you try to break it down into smaller segments. So these smaller segments will actually help you to develop the themes at a later stage of the analysis. So these are the three stages of the data reduction process. Then evaluating the themes. Now, once you do the data reduction, then you get the themes and you start evaluating the themes. So these themes need to be evaluated to ensure they represent the whole of the text. Okay, this is very important that you should, whatever theme you are developing, that those themes which you have developed should represent the whole of the text, not some specific selective part of it. Okay. Validating themes in the early and late stages of data analysis is very essential. Okay, how do you validate it? The researcher should involve an outsider or an outside reviewer who can be an expert in this case during this early stage to evaluate and identify the themes. So, whatever themes you have identified, a standard procedure is to discuss those themes which you have identified from your data with an external expert. Okay, you give this the themes which you have selected, you give those to this external reviewer, and ask him or her to evaluate whether those themes which you have finalized from your data, which you have developed from your data, whether those themes are able to represent the entire data or not. So this will enable the researcher to compare two sets of feedback. Okay, researcher should refer to the list of themes agreed with the outside reviewer and identify those excerpts made by the participants that support each theme. So for each theme, you get two set of feedback. One is those one set of this evidence comes from the um, feedback of the participant. Okay, whatever participant they have told you about, their, for example, suppose you have identified a particular theme, like for example, you have interviewed an educationist, and the educationist tells you about the modern approaches in education. Okay, what are the different modern approaches in education? So um, suppose you identified one particular theme, that is the application of technology, right? Now this particular theme can be supported in two different ways. One is that you can, when you are giving the entire set of themes which you have developed from your data to an external reviewer, the reviewer will evaluate whether your data is justifying that particular theme or not. Okay, so you are getting a feedback in that way. The other way in which you are getting a feedback is that all the things which your participants will be telling you regarding the use of technology in education will provide further evidence for this particular theme which you have developed. Okay, so that's how for each particular theme you get two sets of feedback, right? And you have to evaluate these two sets of feedback to understand whether each of those themes which you have developed, they are validated or not. Is it clear to everyone? Any question?
No, ma'am.
All right. Data display. This step actually involves retrieving data using data display. So this one actually, that something that we discussed already, that it is the organized compressed assembly of information. So where you are able to visualize the entire data in one single figure or one single image, right? So it aims to make sense of the data that is collected. Data display organizes data, helps to arrange concepts and the thoughts. Okay, where you can make use of tables, figures, theme maps, okay, thematic maps, all right, that provides opportunities to get an extra in-depth understanding of the data. Okay, each piece of data offers the researcher the ability to better explain the data. Example, tabulated files provide an appropriate and convenient technique to assist and make comparisons through different themes maps. For example, this thematic maps, I will show you. For example, this is a thematic map of a particular study. You can see there are several, themes identified. Can you tell me what are the themes?
Yes, ma'am. There are several themes identified. Can you tell me what are the themes?
Can you tell me what are the themes? Can you tell me what are the themes? Can you tell me what are the themes? Can you tell me what are the themes? Can you tell me what are the themes? Can you tell me what are the themes? Can you tell me what are the themes? Can you tell me what are the themes? Can you tell me what are the themes? Can you tell me what are the themes? Can you tell me what are the themes? Can you tell me what are the themes? Can you tell me what are the themes? Can you tell me what are the themes? Can you tell me what are the themes? Can you tell me what are the themes? Can you tell me what are the themes? Can you tell me what are the themes? Can you tell me what are the themes? Can you tell me what are the themes? Can you tell me what are the themes? Can you tell me what are the themes? Can you tell me what are the themes? Can you tell me what are the themes? Can you tell me what are the themes? Can you tell me what are the themes? Can you tell me what are the themes? Can you tell me what are the themes? Can you tell me what
Ma'am, insight, discrimination in evaluation,
Hmm.
dichotomy.
Dichotomy. So there are three different themes which the researcher identified, and you see how these are all connected. The themes, the sub themes actually are those which are there in the rectangular boxes. Okay, so you see, for each of these themes, you have several sub themes. For example, for insight, the sub themes are knowledge deficit, concerns, surrender, and reticence. Now, some of these sub themes are again interrelated. So, for example, surrender and reticence, these are interrelated, but concern and knowledge deficit is not related to anything else. Okay. Similarly, you can see that for dichotomy, there are so many different sub themes: comfort, safety, persecution, bullying, domination, misbehavior, vicious cycle, consequentialism. All these are the sub themes of the theme dichotomy. But persecution and bullying are again related to each other. Okay, but all the other sub themes are not related to each other. So, you know, you can actually look into each of these sub themes, and you are able to understand how these themes and sub themes are actually explaining, or you can even develop a model on the basis of these themes and sub themes which you have identified from your data. All right, so that's the thematic map that we are talking about. Now we can use a thematic map, as well as we can use different tables, images, figures, all these to understand um, how to display data in case of a thematic analysis that you are doing. Okay, so thematic maps are not something that will come to you right at the beginning. It is basically the last stage. When you are doing the thematic analysis, it is basically the last stage of doing the analysis, where you are actually checking the theme, and you are trying to write the report. It's there when you actually develop this thematic map, which can explain or represent the entire data which you have with you. All right, so these are the different steps of developing a thematic map. We will discuss each of these in details with examples. This is another example of a figure. This is not a thematic map, but it is something which will help you to understand the different themes and sub themes, how each of these themes and sub themes can explain a particular issue that you want to understand. So for example, the issue is, in what ways are women's feelings about and perceptions of their bodies linked to their clothing practices. Okay, so how are the different ways through which a women's feelings about their feelings and perceptions of their own body is related to their clothing practices. So there are different themes under this particular issue. First is type of clothing. Second, clothes to cover body. Third, dislike of body parts. Fourth, clothes that enhance looks. And fifth is confidence. So you have 5 different themes already identified. Now under each of these themes, you have sub themes. So types of clothing, under that you can have like a round neck tops, loose clothing, trousers. These are the different types of clothing which people or women actually prefer, right? Clothes to cover body, that is another theme which the researcher has identified, and under this particular theme you have different sub themes, like a person can choose to have wear a long sleeve top to cover the arms. Okay, baggy clothing, okay, in order to cover or not to focus on the shape of your body. Long dark trousers. Okay, so these are the sub themes which tells us that these are the practices which clothing practices which women prefer in order to cover their body. Okay. Third theme is the dislike of body parts. So one can have a dislike towards, the legs. So legs like tree trunks. So sometimes, yes, it is true that if you will see that, someone who is maybe too thin, for them, if they wear like tight trousers, it may look like a tree trunk or something, like a trunk. So one can have a dislike towards a body part like that. you know People, they can have a dislike towards upper arms, very fleshy upper arms, very heavy upper arms. Um, sometimes people wear dark trousers to disguise fat legs, okay, because it actually produces the contours, and that helps to minimize the fat, um, or wide range boundaries of someone's body. So these are the different clothing practices that one actually does when they have a disliking towards their body parts. Then clothes that enhance looks, something that these days I see that um, uh, they tell you that, okay, if someone has a pear shaped body, then what are the specific types of clothing that one can use to which will actually suit their pear shaped body. All right, so fitted clothes can enhance someone's looks. Fitted t-shirts, high heel shoes, these can actually, enhance someone's look, someone's particular body shape. All right. So these are specific types of clothing practices which one can go for. And finally, the confidence. So confidence is where the clothing practices related, which relates to confidence, is that wearing a cloth which can produce good memories. Wearing bright colors, sometimes you will see that wearing bright colors can elevate your mood, right? Looking good in certain clothes, so people have their own ideas that, okay, I look good into this type of cloth or that type of. So these are the sub themes which the researcher identified, which can be related to that one particular theme, that is the confidence, related to the clothing practices. So this is again a way of displaying the entire set of data which you have got using a type of thematic map. Is it clear to all of you? Making sense? All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Finally, data drawing and conclusion. That's the third step of this particular model. Um, so Miles and Huberman model have suggested the use of some points to assist researchers to draw conclusions, having displayed data in a variety of ways. What are those different points? So what they have suggested is that, number one, the notation of any pattern or theme, or the relevance of any statement, especially if similar or contrasting. So it is very important that when you are trying to develop themes, you give some notation to it. Theme 1, theme 2, okay, like that. Or if there is any similarity or contrast among those statements in your data, there also you use certain types of notations that will actually help you to uh, you know generate meaning in this case. Second, grouping or establishing categories of information that can go together. So when you are trying to analyze the entire data, you will see that the data will have lots of interlinked or interconnecting themes. Okay, now when you have several sub themes or several groups or categories of information which are close to each other or related to each other, you can club all of those as one. Okay, so that will actually help you to reduce the entire set of data in a much better way. Then next, identifying interrelations among factors and variables. So when you have different factors and variables, what are these factors and variables? When you are dealing with a particular research, for example, someone is doing a research on, say, homosexuality, right? Trying to understand the concept of homosexuality, maybe among young adults. Okay, what is their attitude and something like that. So there, this you can have several factors and several variables which might be related to the concept of homosexuality. For example, their sexual practices. Okay, for example, their education. Okay, about or the sex education which they had got in their school. All right, the practices at home. Okay, the teachings at home. So all those things can be the different factors, different variables, which might be, the producing the type of um, behavior or the attitude that they have developed towards that concept. So it is important that you have to identify the interrelationships among these different factors and variables while you are trying to reduce the data. Fourth is building conceptual coherence and consistency, which at the end it should use to explore the validity of the findings so that they fit the theoretical framework of the study. So make sure that the when you are organizing the data, you get a coherent and consistent understanding of the data. Meaning that, for example, the thematic map that we just discussed here, you will see that here all these are extremely coherent and logically consistent, meaning that each of these themes are related to each other. Each of the sub themes are also related to each other. All right. Again, each of these themes are overlapping but very much different among each other. Right. So that explains the, what should I say, the sharing of variance among all these different sub themes, okay, and themes. So this consistency and this coherence must be there when you are building your map or your model based on your data. So in addition, the stages involve drawing data and um, verification. So here, the verification process actually involves where you are getting the themes which you have got evaluated by an external reviewer, and that will help you to verify this entire process. Okay, so that's the Miles and Huberman model. Now we will be going into another very popular method that you will find for thematic analysis, that is Braun and Clark's process. So what happens here? This process is actually popular because there are 6 different stages, and it's each of these stages, they are highly orthogonal, meaning that each of them are very very separate, and you will be able to um, identify specific aspects of each of these stages separately. All right, so overall these 6 stages actually help you to organize your data in a much better way. So we will see how each of these stages or phases actually work, and what it is, and how it works with certain examples. All right, phase 1. Phase 1 is the familiarization of with the particular data. What is this familiarization of with the data? This entails the reading and rereading of the entire data set in order to become intimately familiar with the data. All right. What is this intimate familiarity? Intimate familiarity is when you are able to understand each specific aspects of it. Someone is saying something, why it is like that, why they said something, why they related some aspect of it with some other aspects. So all these should be very well understood when you are reading and rereading the data over and over again. So this entire data set, when you are going through it repeatedly, that helps you to become familiar with the entire set of data. This is necessary to be able to identify appropriate information that may be relevant to the research question. Manual transcription of data can be very useful activity for the researcher in this regard. I don't know, I think all of you have done a manual transcription of your data for the analysis which you are supposed to do. So
Yes,
that, yes, no, good. So
yes,
that will
ma'am.
actually help you to understand the data from inside. You can when you are actually transcribing it, you are actually giving some thought to it, and when you are thinking about what the participants are telling you, that actually helps you to understand the data in a much better way. Data should be transcribed orthographically. What does it mean? Orthographically means where you are noting the inflections, breaks, pauses, tones, etc. on the part of both the interviewer and the participant. All right. So, uh, as we were discussing in the last class, that what are the different ways through which you can transcribe. So you can try to understand the pauses, how long there has been a pause, okay, what is the break, whether there is any break in the data or not. All right, all these should be very well uh, or very clearly transcribed in your data. Okay. Oftentimes, data may not have been gathered or transcribed by the researcher, in which case it would be beneficial for the researcher to watch or listen to video or audio recordings to achieve a greater contextual understanding of the data. Okay. So what happens here is that, when qualitative researchers who actually work frequently with such kind of data, well, they may not have that much amount of time to do the transcription themselves. In such cases, they use some maybe some software to which does the transcription for them. And then if you go through, if you try to find in internet, you will see that there are these days, you will find several free softwares, where online softwares where you can actually get a transcription of the entire data. Okay. But in such cases it becomes difficult because um, when you are not doing a manual transcription, you may not know whether there was a pause in between. Okay. For example, if you go to YouTube and you try to look into the information about a particular video, especially those interview related videos, you will see that in certain cases, um, you will find a transcription of the entire interview already done by them. So they do it automatically, they do it using some machine algorithms. But in such cases it becomes difficult to understand, because you do not get the pauses, you do not get the breaks. So it's like a subtitle in a movie. Okay, it will run its course. It doesn't take into account the smiles which were there in between, or the pauses or the breaks, or the silences which were there in between. So it just states the words as they are, one after another. So in such cases it is useful if you can just go through the audio or the video recordings of the interview, and then try to understand the background of the data which you have got. Okay. So this phase can be quite time consuming and requires a degree of patience when you are getting familiarized with your data. However, it is important to afford equal consideration across the entire depth and breadth of the data set, and to avoid the temptation of being selective of what to read, or even skipping over this phase completely. All right. So what it says is that when you are doing a familiarization with the data, it is important that you go through the entire set of data, the complete data, the entirety of the data must be covered completely. And you should not be skipping any part of it. That is very important. All right. Um, so this is an example of the familiarization with the data. So this I have taken from a published paper where they have done this familiarization, and they have tried to identify um, those potential aspects of the data which can be analyzed further. Okay, so this was an interview where they looked into the how education and professional development, all these are related to each other. What curriculums, how curriculums can actually lead to student well-being, like that. So this interview was related to all those things. Now here, as you can see, the researcher has actually identified specific aspects of the entire interview process. All right, where they are able to, they have just taken into consideration each of these statements. So each of these statements will actually it can be actually analyzed at a later stage. All right, so this is the labeling part, where you can do a highlighting of these specific statements or parts of the paragraph, which or the entire data set, which you can focus on at a later stage. All right. Phase two, that is generating the initial codes. Okay. Um, all right. So I request you to give me just 2 minutes. If you can excuse me for just 2 minutes. Is it all right, sir?
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. So the phase two is where we are actually generating the initial codes. Once you have gone through the entire set of data, then you start generating each of those codes. So these codes, as we had discussed in our previous class, these are the fundamental building blocks of what will later become themes. So here, the process of coding is undertaken to produce the succinct shorthand descriptive or interpretive labels for pieces of information that may be of relevance to the research question. So in simple terms, you can say that, okay, coding is basically labeling, okay, or short descriptions of the specific, potential pieces of information relevant to your research question. So it is recommended that the researcher works systematically through the entire data set, attending to each data item with equal consideration and identifying aspects of data items that are interesting and maybe informative in developing themes. So all these you should consider while you are working with the entire data set for the coding process. Coding should be brief but offer sufficient detail to be able to stand alone and inform of the underlying commonality among constituent data items in relation to the subject of the research. So each of these codes should be very brief, precise in its approach, but at the same time it should provide sufficient information. Okay, so that each of those codes can explain specific aspects of your data, okay, and also the commonality aspect, okay, the underlying overlap among the data, that should also be represented well by the codes which you have formed. So we will see the example here. uh, are you all able to see this table?
Ma'am.
Yes.
All right, so you can see for example, these are the this is the description that have been given. So it goes like this: I think anything that you do in school that's on paper is difficult to relate to students. All right, so that is taken as a potential code, the first code, C1. What is it? The well-being curriculum is not relatable for the students. That's the first code that you have described. Second, you know and this is the great thing about the new junior cycle, there's a lot more of the hands-on approach in most academic subjects. All right, this is the second code that you are generating. A practical approach to learning is beneficial for students. Third, I think that needs to be brought into areas like SPHE, that's something, some particular system which ensures the curriculum or well-being of the students. So well-being promotion should be practical, that's the third code. Likewise, you see each of these statements are actually uh, you know um, brought into very precise codes which actually explain the each of these statements here. For example, um, look into the sixth code that is there. So can you imagine if you didn't feel connected, what would that be like? You know, trying to get them to relate to those within bracket interviewee gestures towards the well-being indicators on the wall. So from there, you are generating a code that is the well-being guidelines can be made relatable for students through practical measures. Right, so this is how you can form certain codes. So these codes are basically it gives you a description of the data so that you are able to uh, you know um, um, reduce the entire data or form an interpretive level of the entire data. So otherwise if you take a look into this entire description, doesn't really make sense, right? It becomes difficult to make sense of this entire textual description if you look into it. But if you just take a look into the specific codes, then it is different. When you look at the specific codes which you have jotted down from this entire description, then it becomes easier to interpret the entire data set. right? So what it goes like this: a well-being curriculum is not relatable for the students. A practical approach to learning is beneficial for students. Well-being promotion should be practical. The well-being guidelines lack clarity. Well-being guidelines are not relatable for students. Well-being guidelines can be made relatable for students through practical measures. The well-being indicators are not used to promote student well-being. Positivity regarding the well-being guidelines. The well-being guidelines lack clarity. So then you are able to understand that what this entire set of data is talking about. Is it making sense to all of you? How you can generate initial codes?
Ma'am, can I just ask a question?
Yes, yes, sure. Go on.
Yes, ma'am. So here, the code C4 and C9, it
Hmm?
says the well-being guidelines lack clarity. So it's
Hmm?
the same code,
Yes,
but they have been numbered differently. So,
yes,
is it
yes.
mandatory to
Very
code
good
it like
question. Very
this?
good question. See, you see, then what we are getting here, when you are doing an initial coding, you will get several such kind of replications. Okay, so the subject might be telling you the same thing over and over again through different examples, different statements. All right, so you will be getting replications of the same code in the during the initial coding process, and that's why at a later stage you select some of those codes which will act like an umbrella code. For example, well-being guidelines. So well-being guideline related descriptions, all those descriptions will actually, all the themes, or sorry, all the codes which you will be labeling for well-being guidelines will be actually clubbed together at a later stage. All right, and that will help you to develop the theme related to well-being guidelines.
Okay,
Is
ma'am.
it clear?
Ma'am, and one more thing.
Yes.
In the beginning, you were talking about a reviewer. Like after the researcher codes, then a
Yes.
reviewer can also code after that. So, ma'am, if the codes differ, then what do we do? Which one do we keep?
No, if the reviewer, after evaluating the codes, if tells you that okay, this is something different, or maybe this code is not very suitable, not very appropriate, like that, in such a case, you can have a discussion with the reviewer, and then you try to identify where lies the problem. So you can modify your code if needed in that case.
Okay. Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Uh, so this is um, another way through which you can do it. You see, these are the data items. The first column is actually talking about the data item. Then in the second and the third column, it is talking about the iterations. So iterations mean where you are repeatedly going over the coding process. Okay, first iteration, second iteration, third iteration, like that. So um, as you go through these different iterations, you do these iterations over and over again, what you get is that you get to revise, or to filter the codes as much as possible. So for example, the first data item means the excerpt which you get from your data sheet. So what you can do, how you can do is here is that you can actually put the data into a spreadsheet. All right, where the first column can be the specific statement about which or a statement which you have identified to be potential source of data, and then you go through it, and then you keep on doing the coding process. So you can go through different iterations here, and each iteration will help you filter the code as much as possible. So for example, here the first data item is like this: training question mark. Now I wouldn't have done anything in that. Okay, within bracket, the well-being curriculum. So iteration, first in the third iteration means the initial coding is done. So in the third iteration, it is the researcher is coding it in this way: non well-being educator received no well-being CPD. Okay. And in the next stage, this is again filtered into insufficient training into well-being curriculum. All right. So it is like gaining more and more insight as you go through the different iterations of coding process. All right. Then you will find that in the third column here, you will find that for different data items you have the same coding done. For example, the first two coding done here in iteration 4 is insufficient training in well-being curriculum. Although the data items are different. The first one is training question mark. I wouldn't have done anything in that. And the second statement was our principal did some training. She went to a training thing at one stage and came back and kind of updated us. All right. So these two statements are completely different, but both of them are talking about, or coded at a later stage, it is coded as insufficient training in well-being curriculum. Similarly, the third and the fourth data item can be coded as lack of clarity in assessing student well-being. Okay, so that's how you can actually go on doing the iterations over and over again, and that will help you to filter your codes as much as possible, so that you get, finally what you get is a very specific, objective way of expressing what you understood from your particular data. Clear, everyone? Any question?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So the process of generating codes is non-prescriptive regarding how data is segmented and itemized for coding, and how many codes or what type of codes are interpreted from an item of data. Non-prescriptive means there is no specific prescription as to how you are going to generate code. It depends on you. All right, how you are going to categorize the entire data, how you are going to itemize for your coding. Itemize means you are selecting specific excerpts from your data for the coding process. So these actually depends upon the researcher. Okay, how many codes you are developing, what types of codes you are getting from the data, all these actually depends upon the researcher. Okay, the same data item can be coded both semantically and latently if deemed necessary. So you can have a semantic understanding of the analysis of the data, meaning that you are considering the denotations of the words spoken, or you can code it latently, as in you are focusing on the connotations of what has been told. For example, when discussing how able they felt to attend to their students' well-being needs, one participant stated, if someone's struggling a bit with their schoolwork and it's getting them down a bit, it's common sense that determines what we say to them or how we approach them. And it might help to talk, but I don't know that it has a lasting effect. As such, this data item was coded both semantically as educators rely on common sense when attending to well-being issues. Okay, you see, this is the semantic coding done, where you are actually focusing on the denotations of what the participant said. So this says that the coding includes educators rely on common sense when attending to well-being issues, while the latent coding here focuses on the connotation as common sense inadequate for well-being promotion. Okay, so the same data item, same excerpt, you can code differently using different types of coding. Okay, both codes were revised later in the analysis. So when you go through the different iterations, It is possible that you do semantic and a latent coding of the same data item, but the final coding final coding when you are doing, you might find that okay, both of them, they are generating the same um, same type of code, or same theme is emerging from these two different types of codes which you have generated. So it completely depends upon you as a researcher, how you are categorizing the entire data, how you are selecting the data items, and how you are coding each of those data items, whether you are using semantic form, meaning you are focusing on the denotations of the spoken words, or you are focusing on the connotations of the spoken words. So it depends upon you as a researcher. Is it clear to all of you?
Ma'am, just one
Yes.
more thing. Ma'am, you were talking about when we are to do the iterations. So for
Hmm.
that, like how many iterations should be there? Is there a particular order where we should go on reading, right? Once it's read, one
Hmm.
iteration comes. Then again
Hmm.
it's read, again we can
Yes.
filter it with another iteration. So how
Yes.
many times do we do that?
See, there is no specific guideline as to how many times you have to do it. What we try to achieve here is that we want to achieve, you know, what we call it, the the sufficient level. Okay, that is termed as the saturation. Okay, so this saturation is achieved when you see that nothing new is coming out of it. Okay, so maybe you are going through the different iterations 5 times, 7 times, 8 times, 10 times, and then you are seeing that nothing new is coming out. It's all the same. After a while, it becomes saturated. So until and unless you achieve that saturation, you should be going on with the iterations. When you see that that saturation state is achieved where you are not able to generate anything new out of it, then you stop.
Okay. All right.
Okay? All right. Phase 3. This is where we are generating the themes. So this phase begins when all relevant data items have been coded. Okay, so you are done with the iterations and you have reached the stage of saturation. Here, the focus shifts from interpretation of individual data item within the data set to the interpretation of aggregated meaning and meaningfulness across the data set. So now you will not be looking into the data set again. You will be looking at the codes which you have already generated, right? So it gets shifted, the interpretation part gets shifted from reading and rereading the entire data set and trying to understand the data set. So that is not required anymore. You have already generated code and that is done. So here at this stage you are just looking at the different codes which you have already generated, and then you are trying to interpret the codes only. Okay, trying to gain a meaning out of those codes which can represent the entire data set. So the coded data here is now reviewed and analyzed as to how different codes may be combined according to shared meanings so that they may form themes or sub-themes. So as I was mentioning that you might be getting several sub-themes, okay, or several several codes which are similar to each other, right? Now when you are getting several codes which are similar to each other, you can club all those codes into one specific theme or sub theme as you want. All right, so this is the stage where you try to generate themes or sub themes based on the codes which you have already generated. So this will involve collapsing multiple codes that share a similar underlying concept or feature of the data into one single code. Equally, one particular code may turn out to be representative of an overarching narrative within the data and be promoted as a sub-theme or even a theme. So when you are able to identify one specific theme based upon several, one specific code based on several similar uh, codes, you are able to identify an overarching narrative which can represent the data. Okay, now this narrative which you are getting out of it can act like a sub theme or even a theme in certain cases. First we focus on the sub themes. Once all the sub themes are there, then you can club the different sub themes to produce a theme as a whole. Okay, so it is important to re-emphasize that themes do not reside in the data waiting to be found. Or all right, if you think that all right, I'll just take a look into the data and I will find themes out of it, it doesn't work like that. Okay, you have to generate the codes first, and then based on the codes you have to select certain very specific codes out of the entire coding which you have done. Then on the basis of those codes you can generate sub themes and finally themes based upon the relationship that you generate among the different codes. So this relationship actually um, uh, you know um, uh, can give you a complete idea about how each of these um, sub themes or themes are related to each other, and how it can explain the entire data set which you have with you. So it may be beneficial to construe miscellaneous theme or category which may contain all the codes that do not appear to fit in among any prospective themes. All right. So sometimes we form certain specific themes, sub themes, and sometimes we look into some miscellaneous theme. We can even construct some miscellaneous theme which can contain all the codes which do not actually go well with other themes which you have already constructed. So uh, there is no specific guideline which you have to follow for creating or generating these themes, but at the same time these are the usual popular practices that we do in order to generate themes in a thematic analysis, right? So I'll show you here. uh, it's like how you are generating the themes. All right. So you see, there are different ways through which you can, you are able to understand the, the ones in this circles. Okay. These are the themes, main themes identified. So, for example, best practice in well-being promotion, recognizing educator well-being, factors inhibiting well-being promotion, recognizing student well-being. So these four are the main themes identified, and then you have those in the rectangles which give you the sub themes. So for each of the themes you have two sub themes, um, and then these lines actually tell you how these are related among each other. So the continuous lines actually connects the themes with the sub themes, while the dotted lines actually connect among the different themes which you have identified. So you can see that all the themes are related to each other except the best practice in well-being promotion and recognizing educator well-being. These two themes are not related to each other at all the other themes are related to each other. So that's how you are actually able to generate themes. So construing the importance or salience of a theme is not contingent upon the number of codes or data items that inform a particular theme. Okay, whatever theme you are creating, it is not dependent upon the number of codes. How many codes you have generated from your data, it's not important. How many data items you have generated from your data, you have selected from your data, it's not important at all. Okay, it can be like 30 codes, it can be like 50 codes, it can be even 100 codes, whatever it is. All right, so a number of codes, it's not important. All right, but what kind of theme you are generating from those codes, that's what is our concern in this case. So what is important is that the pattern of codes and data items communicates something meaningful that helps answer the research question. Whatever research question you have framed, if you get something that meaningfully explains the research question, then it is useful. All right. So themes should be distinctive and may even be contradictory to other themes, but should tie together to produce a coherent and lucid picture of the data set. So as you can see here, all these themes, they are separate, but they are at the same time overlapping. Okay, they can be absolutely distinctive among themselves. For example, this one, best practice in well-being promotion and recognizing educator well-being, these two themes are completely separate. Okay, these two are not even overlapping. So it is absolutely fine, all these can coexist, but the idea is that all the themes should produce a coherent understanding of the research question which you have framed. So all these themes, although they are separate, but they are somehow linked among each other, overlapping, and they are able to relate to the particular research question which you have framed right at the beginning. So that is very important in this case. Researcher must be able and willing to let go of codes or prospective themes that may not fit within the overall analysis. This is again important. Sometimes it happens that if you when you are doing the coding at the initial stage, you will see that you get like hundreds of codes. Okay, hundreds of codes you might be getting right at the beginning. Now you, when you are doing the filtering, you have to make sure that or you have to uh, um, I mean um, select only those codes which are best representing the data. You should not actually include unnecessary codes. Likewise, when you are actually generating the themes, it is important that you do not really form or generate themes just because there are too many codes. That is not desirable. If you find that one particular code or a prospective theme is not fitting very well with the overall analysis that you have already done, then it's better to drop it. Should not include it in the final narrative which you are stating. Okay, much the same as with codes, there is no correct amount of themes. However, with too many themes, the analysis may become unwieldy and incoherent, whereas too few themes can result in the analysis failing to explore fully the depth and breadth of the data. That is again another problem. So you should not have like it's not like you have to have like this many themes you have to identify. That is not required at all. All right, what is required is that you should have just sufficient number of themes generated from your data set. um, you know uh, you can have like, generally what happens is that you can have like 4 to 5 themes which can best explain the data set. Okay, so if you have like too many themes generated, all right, it becomes a problem. Why? Because too many themes, if you have like you have 10 themes, 15 themes generated from a data, from your data set, then it becomes very difficult to reduce the entire data set, filter it, and then make sure that you represent the data well. Then it becomes problematic. All right, it becomes ambiguous. So it's better that if you have like just enough number of themes to explain your data set. Also, it should not be too few. Sometimes it is possible that while someone is trying to analyze the data, they might end up generating too few themes, maybe two themes or three themes. All right, but it may not be representing the data very well. It may not be sufficient enough to explain the data as a whole. All right, so it is better that if you have just enough number of themes generated from your data set. So at the end of this stage, the researcher should be able to produce a thematic map or table that collates the codes and data items relative to their respective themes. So this is the thematic map which you are able to generate at the end of phase 3. So once you have these themes identified and generated, then you can generate this thematic map as well. Okay, maybe this is not the final map which you have generated. You you will have opportunity to further refine this map, but at least you have a good understanding of what you are trying to generate from your data. That is very important. All right, next, phase 4. So in the phase 4, it is reviewing the potential themes. So this phase requires the researcher to conduct a recursive review of the candidate themes in relation to the coded data items and the entire data set. Meaning what? This entire data set and the codes which you have already generated, from that you have generated certain themes. So you have to do a review of this of these themes which you have already identified. So at this phase, it is not uncommon to find that some candidate themes may not function well as meaningful interpretations of the data, or may not provide information that addresses the research question. So you have to keep in mind that the final intention or the ultimate intention of doing this thematic analysis is that you have to uh, get information that will address your research question. Okay, so if you do not uh, find one particular theme or themes, they are not able to answer your research question, then it is meaningless to include such themes in your data. So better you should drop it. All right, it may also come to light that some of the constituent codes or data items that inform these themes may be incongruent and require revision. So this is the fourth stage where we are actually reviewing the entire process we have already followed till generating the thematic map. So it starts with generating codes, okay, reviewing the different codes, and then reviewing the relationship among the different codes, trying to identify if all the codes are actually coherent or not. Okay, and then finally reviewing whether all the themes which you have generated from the codes, whether all the themes are coherent and congruent among each other or not. So these are some of the questions that you should be asking while you are doing a review of the themes. Is this a theme or not? It could just be a code as well. So you have to identify that whether a theme which you are thinking that all right, this is a theme, whether that's a theme or it's a code, that you have to identify. If it is a theme, then what is the quality of this theme? Does it tell me something useful about the data set and my research question or not? Okay, quality of the particular theme which you have identified. Third question, what are the boundaries of this theme? What does it include? What does it exclude? All right, all these must be answered well in your justification. Okay, are there enough data to support this theme? All right, we call it whether the theme is thin or thick. Okay, thin means you do not have enough data to support the theme which you have generated. Thick means you have enough data. All right, so that is something which you need to evaluate at this stage. Finally, are the data too diverse and wide ranging? Meaning, does the theme lack coherence? So it is not useful if you generate like 5 different themes, and all the 5 different themes are covering all five are completely different. They are like covering five absolute separate aspects or concerns of the data set. That is not very useful, because if you have like too diverse information, wide ranging information, then sometimes the themes may lack coherence, and the model which you will be building out of it, or the theory which you will be developing out of it, may also lack in coherence in that case. In that case, okay. So it is important that you ask these five questions while you are reviewing potential themes, and then you finalize the themes in this case, okay. So for example, here, as you can see, this is just the revision of the previous thematic map that we looked into. So there we had seen that there were four themes identified, all right, and each of those four themes had two sub themes each, right? But in this refined thematic analysis, thematic map that we are looking into, there are five themes, not four. Can you all see the thematic map here?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so you see there are five specific themes identified here. This is after the revision has been done. So now you have five themes, for example, the influence of time, best practice in well-being promotion, recognizing educator well-being, axiology of well-being promotion, completely theorized agreements. So these are the five themes identified. Also, um, three of these themes, they have sub-themes, but the other two, they do not have any sub-theme. So this is the revision of the thematic map that we are seeing, and this revision is done by reviewing all the themes which were identified previously. Okay, so once you do the review of the themes which you identified at the initial stage, you might probably you would prefer to revise the theme, and the relationship among those themes, which can which can explain the model or the theory in a much more coherent and consistent way. Okay. Next, phase 5. So in the phase 5, that's defining and naming theme. At this phase, the researcher is tasked with presenting a detailed analysis of the thematic framework. So the thematic framework which you have now developed, you need to produce a detailed analysis of this thematic framework. So each individual theme and sub-theme is to be expressed in relation to both the data set and the research questions. So you get the evidence from your data set, and you have to make sure that each of these themes and sub themes are able to justify the research question that you have framed right at the beginning. So there's a criteria provided by Patton in 1990. According to this criteria, the dual criteria, each theme should provide a coherent and internally consistent account of the data that cannot be told by other themes. So each theme must be absolutely unique in its approach. Okay. However, all themes should come together to create a lucid narrative that is consistent with the content of the dataset and informative in relation to the research question. Okay. So you have to make sure that there can be several themes, but all these themes must be connected to each other. All right, they can be, you have to make sure that they can be clubbed together if required, to explain or to provide a very lucid narrative in this case. So you are able to explain a particular phenomena or a particular event using all those themes which are interconnected among each other. So that's how you are able to generate the relevant themes in this case. Defining themes requires a deep analysis of the underlying data items. There will likely be many data items underlying each theme. All right. So for each theme, you can have different sub themes, and the sub themes can be related to different data items. All right. So once you go through the data items, that will help you to define each of these themes. All right. Now, defining the theme is important because that's how you represent a particular theme which is emerging from your data. So that depends upon the data items which you have identified in each case, and then you are clubbing all those different themes together, sub themes together, to produce the theme itself. So it is at this point that the researcher is required to identify which data items to use as extracts when writing up the results of the analysis. All right. Why? Because when you are writing the report, finally you are writing the report of your thematic analysis, you have to justify each of the theme which you have identified. Okay, now this justification that you have to provide, that should be completely based upon the data which you have at your hand. So that's why you have to make use of different data items. All right, the if data items means the initial excerpts which you took from your data. So all those data items must be taken into consideration while providing the justification for each of the themes, right? The chosen extract should provide a vivid and compelling account of the arguments being made by a respective theme. Why you have named a theme like that? All right. How do you justify it? That should be explained by the chosen extracts from your data set. Okay. So multiple extracts should be used from the entire pool of data items that inform a theme in order to convey the diversity of expression of meanings across these data items and to demonstrate the cohesion of the theme's constituent data items. So you can take into consideration multiple data extracts, all right, which can help you to express a particular theme in that case. So this is an example of a data extract. For example, you can see this within quotation, the narrative which you are seeing, that's the raw data transcribed. Okay, now from this transcribed data, you are actually trying to explain what it means, or what is the approach of the participant in this case. So it goes like this participant identified that even when an educator is highly trained in an area relative to the well-being curriculum, they still may not have a personality appropriate for attending to the well-being of young people. All right, so in that way, the researcher explains his or her own understanding of the words spoken by the participant. So this is the data item which you are getting. Now when you are trying to justify a particular theme, you have to take into consideration the data item, okay, the content of the data item, in order to justify that particular theme which you have generated from that part of the text. Okay, is it clear to all of you? Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Finally, phase 6. Phase 6 is where you are producing the report. So the separation between 5 and 6 is often blurry. Phase 5 and phase 6, it's often blurry because in the phase 5 also, you have already started the narration of the themes which you have developed. So that's why phase 6, sometimes you can even skip. Skipping means while you are writing the phase 5, you will see that you will have to cover almost everything. So that's why then phase 6 is not even required. So, as opposed to practices typical of quantitative research that would see the researcher conduct and then write up the analysis, write up of qualitative research is very much interwoven in the entire process of the analysis. That's a major distinction between qualitative and quantitative data analysis. In quantitative data analysis, we know that we collect data, and then we try to analyze that data, and once the data is analyzed, then you write the or report the entire research that you have conducted. But in qualitative research, it's the other way around. So here the writing starts right at the beginning. All right, right at the beginning, when you are defining the research question, you are trying to establish the different methods which you will be following, and so on. So it begins right at the beginning, and throughout the entire process, the researcher will be making notes of what the person has done, or what are the specific things that the person has followed. Okay, specific steps which the person has followed. All right. As codes and themes change and evolve over the course of the analysis, so too can the write up. So it is possible that at the very beginning you are writing it in a particular way, and then when the codes and the themes, that those are modified. All right, then it is possible that the write up will also change according to the change in the codes and themes which you have identified. Okay, changes should be well documented by this phase and reflected in informal notes and memos, as well as a research journal that should be kept over the entire course of the research. Why is it important? Because when you are actually dealing with this entire set of data, sometimes it happens that you can get confused when you are trying to interpret this large amount of data. So codes, at the initial stage you might be generating codes, you might be generating themes, right? But it is possible that as you go on with the analysis, you might have to change some of the codes or change some of the themes, so there can be modifications required. So something you wrote right at the beginning, and then it got changed. If you do not keep a note of what has changed over time or with the entire process of the analysis, then towards the end you will find it very difficult to recall what had happened and why you um, generated a particular code, or why you generated a particular type of theme. So then it becomes very difficult, and at the same time very very subjective. You will not be able to justify the themes which you have already generated. All right, so that's why it is important that you keep a note of the entire process. Take note of some informal notes maybe you can use in order to well represent what you have done, or what you actually you did while you were doing the analysis part. So phase 6 then can be seen as the completion and final inspection of the report that the researcher would most likely have begun writing before even undertaking their thematic analysis. So that's the uniqueness of qualitative research, where you start writing the report right at the beginning, when maybe even if you have not even collected your data, you can start writing the research report, because a lot of things actually go on changing, revising over and over again at a later stage. So just that in the phase 6, the researcher has to be very very careful that they do not skip or somehow miss one particular step that has been followed in the process. So that's why the writing goes on hands in hand with the the research that you are conducting. Okay, is there any question till here? Any doubt? Okay, so these are the 6 phases that we follow in as a popular way of doing the thematic analysis. And I hope that more or less it is clear to all of you. But if you do not do it hands on, probably you will find it very difficult. All right, so the best part is the data which you have collected. I would recommend that all of you should do hands-on on the thematic analysis in this case, following the 6 different phases that we just discussed, and that will help you to do the analysis yourself. Okay. Finally, certain ethical issues that should be kept in mind while you are conducting the interview and you are interpreting the qualitative data out of it. So informed consent, definitely, I think all of you know about what is informed consent. So this is where you take the consent of the participant after informing him or her about the entirety of your research that you are conducting. So that's the informed consent. And since we collect data from human subjects, it's absolutely mandatory that you take informed consent with before conducting any research. Okay. Privacy and confidentiality while you are collecting data from participants, since these are very very personal feelings that the person might be sharing with you. So you have to make sure that you respect the privacy of your subjects expressions of their personal feelings, like that. And also you should maintain confidentiality in this case. So these are the very general ethical concerns that governs any research that you might be doing. Okay. Third, harm. So if there is any chance of any harm that can happen in this case, you should be careful about that. You should make sure that uh, you are able to make sure that that harm is not caused, or if there is any chance of something like that, you are able to uh, you know uh, do away with or deal with it effectively. Dual role of the researcher in this case, because you are collecting the data, you are also interpreting it. So there are uh, challenges as well as the requirements of different roles in this case. Okay, so that must be kept in mind. All right. Over involvement is where which can introduce researcher bias. So when you are conducting an interview, if the researcher gets over involved in the um, interview process, then again it can um, lead to subjectivity, problems of subjectivity. So over involvement is definitely not very healthy, because it will not only introduce researcher bias in the interview process itself, but also the interpretation part. There again the subject will face the researcher will face problems in interpreting the interviewed data in a very very objective manner. So over involvement again violates the ethical consideration in thematic analysis. Researchers subjective bias, it is important both in conducting the interview as well as doing the thematic analysis of the data. So someone's subjective bias must not be affecting their ways of interpreting the data that they have. All right. So for example, suppose I'm doing a research on homosexuality, and maybe it is possible that I have a negative attitude towards homosexuality. So in that case, the questions that I will be asking, and the ways in which I will be interpreting the data will definitely be biased in some way or the other, right? Because I myself, I have a negative attitude towards it, so I would like to see automatically negative tone of expressions among all the participants. So even if there are positive attitudes or positive expressions, I somehow I will be ignoring those things, because the subjective bias will be very high in this case. So that is something that we have to keep in mind while conducting interviews and interpreting the results. Finally, ethical issues in reporting. So there are certain ethical issues which you must follow while you are trying to report what you have done. See, in qualitative data analysis, since it does not involve number, you have the full freedom, full autonomy of interpreting that type of data in whatever way you want. All right. Now that's why it again becomes a very big responsibility of the researcher that, so that they do not end up, misinterpreting the type of data that you have got from your interview. So, um, while you are reporting, as I mentioned, that the researcher should keep a very good note of what are the specific codes that they have identified. If any modifications you have done in the process of modifying the codes, if any change has occurred in the thematic map at a later stage, all these things should be very well recorded while doing the interpretation part. So that will ensure that when you are reporting your results, um, people will accept, other researchers might be able to relate with it, accept it, and they acknowledge the genuinity of your research. So that's why, keeping a note of all those codes that you have generated, the themes you have generated, is extremely important. Okay, so um, just to summarize, qualitative interviews require systematic efforts and expertise of the interviewer. Developing transcripts is an important step in qualitative data analysis. Coding are of various forms and should be chosen carefully. Themes are developed based on coding of the data. Thematic maps help understand the phenomena, and qualitative interviews and the interpretation requires following several ethical concerns. So I'll stop here, and um, I'm now open to questions. And the four of you who have already submitted your data, if you'd like to share your experiences with all of us, and try to interpret your data accordingly, then I think it will be very useful for the others as well. So yes, questions.
Amruta, who has presented first?
Just a minute, sir. I'll check the name.
I think Shrishta.
Kavita, Kakoli, Shrestha, and Srilakshmi have updated the assignment.
Who is the first?
Kavita.
Okay, Kavita, are you here? No, Kavita is not here. What she has presented? Can you
The
share?
assignment.
Yeah, so that madam can share her opinion. Google Classroom.
Yes, so 1 minute. Huh? Till then, if anybody else wants to present, they can go ahead.
Yeah, students, do you have any question? Because thematic analysis is very, very important. First day I have told you that is why I have rejected several papers on thematic analysis, because coding is not there. Memoing, these things are not maintained properly.
Do you include the memos in the research paper, like in the appendices?
Hmm? Shubhana,
These,
Yes,
somebody
yes,
is asking some question.
yes. Sri Lakshmi, I think you are asking that whether we need to, report the memos or the codes in the paper, isn't it? Include the memos in the app. Of course, sometimes you will find that the memos are included not in the appendices but in the main text only. Okay, so when you are, at least you have to uh, provide a visual display of whatever you have done. Okay, so if you go through the different papers, you will see that they have you know um, cited the different codes, then the different memos if they have worked with memos. Okay, like we work with memos in grounded theory research, so there you state the memos also, uh, then the codes which you have generated from your data, and then on the basis of those codes and memos, if you're generating themes based on the codes, all those how you are generating themes based on the codes, that should be very clearly mentioned in your uh, paper. Okay, so you can provide the all the codes and the themes, memos, etc. in the appendix, or sometimes you will find that researchers they present the codes along with data items, the excerpts in the form of tables within the paper itself. Okay, so both are fine, no problem. Okay, does that answer your
ma'am.
question?
Okay, ma'am. Can you like share one paper that has done this
Yes, I
really
will
well?
I will I will share it. I will share it with you. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
So I see here preparation of NEET examination among NEET aspirants. So class 11 students who are studying in various coaching center for NEET preparation. Fine, fine. Objective, fine. Factors for attending various coaching rather than or traditional one subject teaching coaching center. All right. All right. So can you share a bit about your decision to attending a coaching center for NEET preparation? How do you integrate the coaching center's teachings into your personal study plan? All right. Do you believe attending a coaching center was right decision for your NEET preparation? Why or why not? Fine. So then the transcript. Okay. That's why it was require me to go. Can you scroll down? Places and study there in one places. Okay. All right. So, Kavita, right? So, Kavita, what you have to do here is that from each of these answers which you got here, you have to first select the data extracts, data items. All right, meaning the potential part of each of these explanations, the narratives, which can be explaining, which you can, from which you can actually generate the code. So, for example, can you go up the first response that that she has got here? Yeah, here. So you see here a potential data item can be that I opted for coaching institution because for me it was not possible to have these different tuition for three different tuition for three subjects. All right, that is one potential area. Then second one is since it would require me to go places and study time and in one place, something like that. So this is the second aspect. So this is where the participant is explaining, all right, why they have opted for a particular coaching center, right? So that's the first data item. So what you do here is that you make a note of the data item that is there in your data. All right. And the best way to do it is you use an Excel sheet. You write the data item first in the first column, like I showed you. And then after, selecting the data items from each of these excerpts, then you go for the coding process itself. So the initial coding will be, long statements, long items, which will tell you a lot of things, and then you go on refining it over and over again, through different iterations, and then you try to get a specific statement or a specific word or 2 3 words which will explain the particular code, final code for your data. Okay, is it making sense, Kavita?
Kavita is not here. So whatever you have told, that is recorded. So Kavita
Okay,
will follow.
okay, sir, no problem.
Ma'am, I have a doubt.
Yes.
Oh,
Uh,
Kavita has
since,
joined. Acha, acha.
uh, since we have already decided on the objectives and we have made the questions based on the objectives, will the themes be like almost similar to the objectives?
The themes to be similar to the objectives?
Yes, ma'am.
No, your objective can be that you would like to understand how, for example, the Kavita's work that she has done, the objective is to identify that, whether students, or why they have students are opting for neat coaching centers. Okay. Or something like that, that can be the objective. But when you are trying to explore a particular objective based on the interviewed data that you have got, there the themes which will be emerging will be answers to your research questions, not the same as your research question. That you have to keep in mind. So if your question is why students are selecting a particular coaching center, then the themes which will be emerging from your interviewed data, that should reflect the answers to that particular question. So it may include answers like, because one coaching center, getting tuition from one coaching center, like a neat coaching center, actually solves the problem of going to several different coaching centers. So that can be one particular theme. Second can be that it is time effective, cost effective. That those are the other themes that can emerge. All right. Or a third theme can be that, something like a neat coaching center will have reputed teachers, so they get better training there. So these are the different themes which you would like to see emerging from your interviewed data, that will be potential answers to the research question which you have framed at the beginning. Is it clear?
Okay, ma'am. Okay. Yes.
Okay. Any other question? Is the entire process clear to all of you? Will you be yourself able to do a thematic analysis of the data you have collected now?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you understand why the iteration is important?
Yes, sir, to refine our codes.
Hmm. And the data reduction, Madam has told you about the data reduction.
To
How
make
the
the
data?
data coherent and easy. Make it
Oh.
coherent and easy to understand.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay, so I would request all of you to at least try. Okay, so this is your first time you will be doing a thematic analysis, so it may not be the perfect one, but the you should actually try it just to get a hang of the entire process, how to do it. So the best thing is that you need to do is, once you are done the transcription of your data, first step should be that you know open a spreadsheet and you try to identify the data items from your narratives. Okay. Potential data items from which you can generate codes, and write it down in the Excel sheet. Then you go on with the refining of your coding through different iterations. All right, so there may be 3, 4, 5, 7 different iterations through which you might be able to you know refine the codes which you will be generating. So once you have the you know you have reached the stage of um, uh, where you have sufficient amount of coding done already and no new coding is coming out. All right, you have reached the stage of saturation. Then you go for generating the themes. All right, make sure that you have enough themes but not too many to explain the or represent the data, and the themes must be consistent and coherent among each other. So you do this and you try to develop the thematic map just as an exercise for all of you. All right, there may be certain mistakes. Yeah, you might find it difficult at some point, but at least try to do it so that you get a hang of the entire process, how it is done. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
All right. So the next part of this assignment then is to do the thematic analysis for your collected data. I think 4 of you have already collected data and transcribed it. The others, please do it as soon as possible, and you know try to do the thematic analysis on your own. If you want my help, you are free to you know contact me directly. If you want for any kind of guidance regarding the thematic analysis that you will be doing, but this is the second part of your assignment, which I will assign to you, and you know you can submit it within the next you know 1 week or 2 weeks time, as you please. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Acha, Shumana, is there any model journal publication
Yes, yes, sir.
so
I
that
will
they
share.
can
I will
follow?
share it with them. I will share it with them so that they can follow it.
Yeah, that is vital.
Yes. Okay. Any other question or doubt?
I think they have understood. They are very
Okay.
good
Okay,
student.
sir.
They have understood. So we will
Okay, sir.
take one photo now.
Okay, sir.
Uh,
Sir, my laptop's camera is not working, so I will be joining from my mobile, right?
okay, no problem.
Okay, sir.
Dear students, please open your video. Thank you, Kakoli. Thank you, Sri Lakshmi. Thank you, Shrestha. Thank you, Farah. Thank you, Amruta. Mona Lisa, please open. Shati. Kavita, please open your video. Madam will open videos soon. Farah, please open your video. Mona Lisa, you have not opened your video. Okay, thank you, everybody. So if you have any particular support, please you contact Madam.
Sir, we have to wait for Sumanas ma'am.
Shumana ma'am to here.
Okay, sir, I can't see her. Her video is not on. Sir, video is not on. Okay,
No,
yeah.
no.
Okay, okay, she's here. Okay, let me take her. Okay, thank you, everyone. Okay, sir.
So Farah, give vote of thanks
Uh,
to Mana madam.
Sir, Amrita.
Yeah, Amruta. Amruta, you give the vote of thanks. Amruta has some network problem, maybe. Hello, Farah, you give the vote of thanks. Amruta has some network problem, maybe. Again, you have the problem, Farah. Okay, Sri Lakshmi, Shati.
Yes, sir. There is a Okay. Thank you, Sumana ma'am, for taking out your time to teach our students. We really appreciate you. And I hope students are they don't have any doubt really. And they have understood your topic paper 2 very well. Right, students? Do you have any doubt? Have you understood thematic
Analysis.
thematic analysis and interview analysis? Or
Yes,
do you
ma'am.
want do you want to say anything to Sumana ma'am? You can add on.
Uh,
Yeah,
Yes,
please.
ma'am, it was a very enriching session, and I have always wanted to learn thematic analysis, and I used to think that it is so tough I might not be able to do it. But after attending your classes, like I have a very clear idea of how to, start with it and how to, like if I try enough and if I read my data set enough, then I'll have a clear understanding of what to do with it. So thank you so much, ma'am, for a very precise and exact content that you have provided. Thank you so much.
Very good. Very nice. Sri Lakshmi,
Oh,
please share.
ma'am, I've understood whatever you said. You have explained it very nicely and in such simple way that anyone could like. If I had no idea on this concept before, and after you explained it, I got like a wonderful insight into it. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, Sri Lakshmi. Srishta. Srishta, would you like to share some?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm here.
What is your experience, Srishta, about today's lecture?
It was really very interesting to understand thematic analysis because this is something which we haven't done before, like in our career. So it was always something which I wanted to learn. And the way Shumana ma'am has explained it with the examples, with the different kinds of thematic, the mind maps also. So it's very interesting. And if we have doubts, you can always contact her. So that's a very it's a very it's a good effort from her part, and
Thank you, Srishta. Kakoli,
Yes, sir. So
please you
it was,
share your experience.
yes, sir. It was a very good experience with ma'am, and basically, like she was very clear. She have explained the models as well. So that was the best part, because when we write a paper based on thematic analysis, so we can see the review which was been given by the editorial board. They usually ask like which model, whose model you're following. And this session is so clear that she has explained all the steps clearly, one by one and everything, so that from the research point of view also, like if we see the ppt or if we try to relate whatever she was explaining, it will be give a very clear understanding, and it will help us to write the paper in a very systematic manner as well. So that's a very good session which I really enjoyed, and I really liked the session. Thank you, ma'am. And we are I'm expecting more some kind of sessions in the near future, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, everybody. So now I am going to close the session. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.